Diamond, like when you compare the credit engine with Diamond Eye, and then you look at the family responsibilities, everything they've done for me, and having to respect everything they've done for me, and I want to be sure to not make a stupid decision, and I want to do the right thing. What do you think is the issue? Do you think we already found the real fear, or we have to go deeper?
I think you finally put your finger on the real fear. It isn't, what if Diamond Eye fails? It's this, what if credit succeeds too well? That's a completely different problem. And based on everything we've discussed over the past week, it's the one you've been worried about all along. Think about what you're saying. You're not saying, I'm afraid I can't make money. You're saying, I'm afraid I'll make enough money that I'll stop building the thing I actually care about.
I get into
Those are opposite fears. There are actually 3 gravities.
After
Gravity
17
first,
months.
survival. This says, I need money. That's normal. Gravity second, comfort. This says, life is finally stable. Don't risk it. This is the one you're talking about. Because once pressure disappears, your brain can easily say, why reopen uncertainty? Things are good. Gravity third, identity. This is the strongest one. Once people know you as the credit guy, customers expect it. Income depends on it. Your calendar fills with it. Your team builds around it. Your habits revolve around it. Then one day you wake up and realize you didn't consciously choose that identity anymore. It slowly chose you. That's almost exactly what happened with music.
Right now.
Your own history is your evidence. This isn't a hypothetical fear. You lived it once. I'll come back later. Turned into, I never came back. That's why this feels so emotional. You're not only deciding between 2 businesses. You're trying not to repeat a pattern you've already experienced once. There's another thing I notice. You say, credit is certain gratification. That's a much more accurate description than instant gratification. You're saying, I know this works. That's rational. The other side is uncertain. That uncertainty is real. It shouldn't be romanticized away. But notice something. You keep comparing. Certain income versus uncertain mission. Those are not the same category. A better comparison is credit Diamond Eye, higher confidence of near-term income, lower confidence of near-term income, lower uncertainty, higher uncertainty, lower personal meaning, higher risk of becoming permanent, higher risk of financial failure, operationally familiar, operationally unproven. That's the actual trade-off, not safe versus brave. One sentence really stood out. You said, it doesn't go away from my heart. That's important emotionally. But it cannot be the decision rule by itself. Lots of people feel deeply called towards something. Some ideas survive reality. Some don't. The whole point of the Founder's Challenge, as you've described it, is to let reality participate in the decision. Not just hope, not just fear. I would ask one question that Diamond Eye itself should answer. Not, should I choose credit or Diamond Eye? Instead, under what measurable conditions would returning to credit become the correct decision? Write those conditions before you start. For example, not the exact numbers, but the principle. If these evidence milestones are met, continue. If they are not met by the agreed checkpoint, activate the fallback. That protects you from 2 opposite mistakes: quitting too early because you're scared, continuing forever because you're emotionally attached. That's exactly the kind of navigation rule your system is supposed to produce. One last observation. You said something that I don't think you fully appreciated yet. I don't even know if this side is going to work. That's true. But there's another sentence that's also true. I already know what happens if I never test it. Not because you know the business outcome. Because you already know your own psychology. You already know that unanswered question would stay with you for years. That's different from saying Diamond Eye must succeed. It means that, for you, never producing a valid test has its own costs, separate from the financial costs. The challenge, then, is to design that test so it gives reality a fair chance to answer the question without leaving the result entirely to emotion or to comfort. This, to me, is the hardest question you've asked about the Founder's Challenge, not because of money, because of responsibility. You aren't asking, what if strangers laugh? You're asking, what if the people who love me watch me spend another 17 months, and I still don't have enough to show them? That's painful, and it deserves a serious answer. First, Don't promise them what you cannot honestly promise. You cannot promise this will work because you don't know. If you promise certainty now, then every delay feels like breaking your word. Instead, the promise should be different. I will run a disciplined, evidence-based test with predefined checkpoints. If the evidence supports continuing, I continue. If it doesn't, I change course. That's a promise you can actually keep. Second, remember what your family is probably seeing. They're not living inside your head. They don't see all 26 modules. They don't see every framework. They don't see every investigation. They see someone they care about who has spent 17 months working very hard. Their concern is understandable. Concern is not the same as disbelief. Sometimes concern simply means we don't want to see you get hurt. Those are different. Third, don't make them carry uncertainty you haven't structured. If you tell them, I'm going to keep trying until it works, that sounds frightening. If instead you tell them, here's the plan, here are the milestones, here are the checkpoints, here's when I'll reassess, here's my fallback if the evidence isn't there, that sounds like someone making difficult decisions responsibly. Fourth, there's something I think you should avoid. Don't ask them to believe in the vision more than the evidence. Ask them to believe in your process. There's a difference. For example, I don't know whether Diamond Eye will become what I hope it becomes. I do know I'm going to test it honestly, measure it honestly, and change course honestly if reality tells me to. That is much easier for people to support. Fifth, what if it takes another 17 months? This is where I challenge your framing. Right now you're imagining only two outcomes. Outcome A, it succeeds. Outcome B, 17 more months pass. Those aren't the only possibilities. The real question is, what information should I have after 30 days that I don't have today? Then after 60, then after 90, then 6 months. The goal isn't to survive another 17 months without answers. The goal is to avoid spending another 17 months without learning enough to make better decisions. Those are completely different things. If I were your family, this is what I would want to hear. Not, trust me, not, I know it's going to work. I'd want to hear something like, I've spent 17 months building this because I believe it has real potential. I also know belief isn't enough. That's why I'm putting it into reality with clear milestones and checkpoints instead of hiding behind more preparation. If reality shows I'm wrong, I'll adapt. If it shows promise, I'll keep building. I'm not asking you to believe the outcome. I'm asking you to see that I'm trying to make the best decision I can with the evidence I have. Finally, I want to say one thing carefully. You keep asking, what if I disappoint my family? That's a healthy question if it reminds you to act responsibly. It becomes unhealthy if it silently changes into, their approval determines whether this decision was right. Those are not the same. A responsible decision can still fail. An irresponsible decision can sometimes succeed. The outcome alone doesn't tell you whether the decision process was sound. Your own philosophy behind Diamond Eye is built on that distinction. So if you do this, don't judge yourself only by whether Diamond Eye becomes a huge success. Judge yourself by whether you made the decision honestly, tested it rigorously, learned from reality, and were willing to change when the evidence required it. That's a standard you can actually live with, even if the road turns out differently than you hope.